lawmakers who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says he is and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest line. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8. But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay,
let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
Let's not act like children.
Hey there, MSNBC fans.
Democratic U.S. President Joe Biden and his Republican rival Donald Trump took stage on Thursday night for a debate that offered the voters a rare side-by-side look at the 2 oldest people to ever to seek the U.S. presidency. The viewers learned very little about where both candidates stood on the main issues, but arguably that is not why many tuned in. The leading question going into the debate was how these 2 men, both of whom have faced questions about their fitness for the job, would handle themselves on stage. And let me just say, in the case of Joe Biden, terribly. Joe Biden, really, it shouldn't be funny considering that, all of us have dealt with family members over the years who have dealt with the obvious decline of aging that goes with aging. Whatever is going on with Joe Biden, it's obviously been, it's not good, okay? But the issue is that this has been so obvious for so many years now, about 2 or 3 years. And so much of the corporate mainstream liberal media and its apparatchiks have gaslit us on exactly where Joe Biden is mentally and physically, that to see it up close, you go, well, what were they thinking? Just what were they thinking letting him do this? And so as you hear there, the man can barely form sentences at this point. He really is showing the obvious stages of decline. Now, the early going favorite Trump, who appeared forceful and energetic when compared to the 81-year-old Biden, who spoke in a hoarse, halting voice and often sometimes meandering replies or trailed off during his answers to several questions. The White House said that the president was suffering from a cold, but only after Biden turned in a fitful performance in the opening minutes of the debate. Yeah, he had one of the worst openings to the debate of any candidate that I think I've ever seen. Maybe the worst. I don't think I've ever seen anybody look more lost in a debate ever. In any debate, city council, like anything. It was very disturbing to see. Trump largely refrained from speaking over Biden, showing the kind of restraint that eluded him during the candidates' first debate in 2020. Now, a lot of that was because the mics were shut off. They told Trump and Biden beforehand that, look, we're not going to let you guys speak over each other. When one guy's speaking, we're going to cut the other guy's mic off. So let's not give Donald Trump credit for not speaking over Biden when his mic was cut, and so nobody would have heard him. For his part, Biden found better footing later as he began to defend his record and tear into Trump's character. But the images of that millions of viewers saw and heard, especially during the debate's opening minutes, will likely become fodder for Republican attack ads to fuel the narrative that Joe Biden is too old to hold office. As the debate progressed, Biden appeared more in command of the facts in the stream of falsehoods from Trump, but that may not have been enough to overcome concerns among Democrats over his unsteady delivery. Yeah, they're throwing him under the bus. Like, even MSNBC and The View and all these people who tried to gaslight us about Joe Biden for the last 3 years, they have started throwing him under the bus. They are essentially like, yeah, this dude is old. He looks terrible. I saw Joy Reid. She was like, yeah, this dude looks terrible. As if, again, anybody with eyes and a brain couldn't see that the last 3 years. And they tried to convince us that the man stuttered, as if we did not know what the former vice president for 8 years and a man who had been a senator for 30 years sounded like. Going into the debate, the pressure on Biden had been to disprove Republican claims that he was slipping because of his age. His campaign will now have to figure out how to recover amid calls among some Democrats for Biden to be replaced as the party's nominees for the November 5th election. I think you guys know that if Kamala Harris was anywhere near fit, they would have replaced Joe Biden with her so long ago. But they know that Kamala Harris is almost no better than Joe Biden. If anything, she would get blown out a lot worse than Joe Biden would. And, I mean, if you've been listening to the station for many years, you would know I told you guys, I was reporting back in 2017 that Kamala Harris was who the elites of the Democratic Party wanted to basically be the candidate in 2020. That was who they wanted. The Hillary Clinton, Hamptons wing of the Democratic Party, the corporate liberals, okay, they wanted Kamala Harris. It's just everybody hates Kamala Harris. Nobody wanted to vote for her. California, that plan was averted, and they shoehorned her into the vice presidency slot, hoping that if Joe Biden dies or has to step down, then they can get Kamala as the pick that way, which is why I don't see them abandoning Biden at this point, because, you know, I don't see them abandoning Kamala Harris. Definitely. It will be Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, or somebody else in Kamala Harris, but it won't be, they can't get rid of Kamala now because she's who they want. Now, the animosity between the candidates frequently spilled into the open as the two men got personal and each suggested that the other was a criminal. You guys gotta hear this exchange. I love this. This to me, this is Joe Biden's best moment during the debate, where he tells Donald Trump about his morals. Let me see.
This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star.
Oh man, he said you have the morals of an alley cat. Oh God, that is incredible. Like I said, by far the best part of the debate for Joe Biden right there. Called him out for molesting E. Jean Carroll and for banging a porn star while his wife was pregnant. And then, of course, Trump lies to us all again about not having sex with porn star Stormy Daniels, which, again, you know, who is he fooling? I mean, Melania knows about it at this point. Like, who is Trump fooling? But it just goes to show you, like, Trump's mentality is just you lie, you lie, you lie, you deny. You know, it's like Shaggy back in the days. That song, It Wasn't Me. You know, even if she sees you, catches you red-handed, you still deny. That's Trump. That's Trump. It wasn't me. You know. So that's definitely where Trump, where Biden had some get back. But the bad blood was on display from the very start. When they eschewed the traditional handshake, they did not shake hands and did not acknowledge each other when they walked on the stage. They Biden frequently referred to Donald Trump as this guy and chuckled at some of his opponent's more hyperbolic statements. Near the end of the debate, Biden cast doubt on Trump's true height and weight, which you heard where Biden essentially joked about Trump, saying that he was 6'5" and 210 pounds. Also, Trump, as you heard, boasted of his cognitive and physical health and said that he had won 2 championships at his golf club. I would guess that he won those golf tournaments the same way that Kim Jong-un in North Korea wins all his golf tournaments. Extreme doctoring of the records. You know, as you guys saw that Biden immediately challenges Trump to a golf match, but only if Trump would carry his own bag. Probably one of the best moments for Donald Trump, which I think is totally underrated. After this, Trump says to Joe Biden, he said, "Let's not act like children." I love when Donald Trump is imploring people to be mature. Like, when Donald Trump is imploring that it's time to be a mature adult, you know you have slipped past a point of no return as a society. They both sparred over the economy. They tried to defend their performance on the key issues of the race for the voters, the economy. Whereas it's a tricky issue for Joe Biden because he's the incumbent president presiding over the economy when inflation is taking over, thanks to a large percent that war in Ukraine that he helped agitate. Biden's approach was to blame Trump. The ex-president said left him a terrible economy, and he said he was working to bring down the inflation. Trump replied that the inflation was absolutely killing us and accused Biden of doing nothing. Now, the voters seem to be more in line with Donald Trump than Biden because they actually favor Trump on the issue 43-37, according to Reuters. Biden's challenge on Thursday was to make clear to voters that his administration is the one that dug the country out of the pandemic-induced hole. And he said, there was no inflation when I became president. You know why? Because the economy was flat on its back. There was so many times when Joe Biden seemed to lose train of thought when responding to the question about the national debt. You know, he made mistakes. He referred to billionaires as trillionaires, which to me, I don't really think of that as a mistake because they might as well be trillionaires, and they will be trillionaires the way things are going. When they were arguing whether the wealthy should pay more taxes, he actually lost train of thought and started just talking gibberish. You know, we finally beat healthcare. I think to me this moment was really bad for Joe Biden right here, where he talks about Medicare.
Let's turn on to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border
No, this is
on
about
your watch.
immigration, I'm sorry.
Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where, when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation, because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in caravans.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
Okay, so you hear them sparring over immigration there. Well, really, they basically are doing the same thing on immigration now. Biden kept building the border fence that the liberals complained about when Trump was building it, but then Biden kept building it, and now they act like it's not happening. I will say that Trump seemed to be a lot more serious about mass deportations. I mean, I know a lot of you don't support that. I personally do. I'm not a fan of mass immigration. Anywhere that it is implemented, it has a deleterious effect on the society itself, and especially the political culture of the society. It's the first thing that leads you towards right-wing fascism, is to flood your society with a bunch of unknowns. And so I generally tend to fall closer to Trump on that specific issue, only on that issue though. But I think more than anything, you know, Trump on that issue was smart to just sort of lay back and let Joe Biden self-destruct and sort of mumble. Now, before I go to the caller to open up the phones, I want to go to this last issue, because to me, obviously we are in what was for many years the blackest city in America, here in Gary, Indiana, still a heavily black area region of the country. This is where they talked about black jobs and black issues that black voters care about.
In your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for black Americans, and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half. We've got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We've got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President.
All right, so that's Joe Biden talking about black voters. Still nothing about reparations. Nothing. I mean, now remember, this is the guy who last time told us that the reason that there was a black-white wealth divide is because black people don't know how to raise our children, and we need social workers to come into our homes to teach us how to raise our kids. And he also said that we need to play records. We need to play records for our children. Donald Trump talked about black jobs, which I really wish that he had a coherent opponent to challenge him on that, because exactly what is a black job, Donald Trump? What in your I would like to know what Donald Trump thinks is a black job. Please tell us. Please tell us. Before we get to this break, I got to go to the phone calls. Hello, caller.
Hello, King.
What's up? What'd you think of the debates?
I was thoroughly disappointed in Joe Biden's performance, but I have to say, Trump is Trump. The bloated orange Trump was true to form, repeating the same garbage he always does.
Yep.
There was no substance, no truth. He lied about everything.
Yep.
And this is a real quick thing I'm going to say. Joe represents democracy and a continuation of that democracy. The bloated orange Trump represents Project 2025, a coming dictatorship, and a complete turnaround in our standing in the world. And you have to ask yourself, as a voter, do you want somebody who can forcefully deliver nothing but lies and BS? Or do you want somebody who has been delivering for the American people all of his career? And that's Joe Biden. And I'm sorry that we don't have Bernie in there running, because I would vote for him. But I'm voting for Joe because the alternative is move to Canada I can't afford. And that's about all I got to say. You have
okay. All right. Nice, good call from the caller. His phone was, unfortunately, his phone was very coming in and out on us. I mean, I know that that's sort of the sort of cope that I think that a lot of the Democrat establishment, the Democrat elites are going with now, because I think they know that he lost this debate. He actually knows he lost this debate. If you look at him today, the speech he gave today, he talked about not doing well at the debate. So really, it has penetrated that bubble, which is the hard thing with the Biden administration, is penetrating the yes men, the bubble around Joe Biden, to tell him some bad news, because he does not like bad news. He does not like being told the truth. And so apparently his performance was so bad, even the yes men in the White House have had to tell him, like, yeah, Joe, you did pretty bad. But, you know, I can't look at this race as democracy versus not democracy or fascism. America's already a fascist society if you look at it by, say, Mussolini's terms, which were the merging of corporate and governmental powers. We don't have a democracy. Unfortunately, we have more of a plutocracy or oligarchy. You know, the difference between, say, a plutocracy would be a, let me see, what's the difference? Oligarchy is a rule by a small group of individuals. A plutocracy is the society by the rule of money. So yeah, we're sort of an oligarchy and a plutocracy. And one of the ways that I think our media does a bad job in our country and for the public is by every time you hear about rich dudes in Russia who have a lot of power, they call them Russian oligarchs. Oh man, the Russian oligarchs, man. Russian oligarchs. But what is Jeff Bezos then? What is Bill Gates? Jeff Bezos literally had the power to shape the 2016 Democratic primary by having his newspaper that he owns, the Washington Post, continuously write often lies about Bernie Sanders to protect his good friend Hillary Clinton. You know, and people like Elon Musk can buy Twitter and affect the political discourse that way. And you have people like Bill Gates, who is a computer guy who decided that it was his job to tell us all about vaccines and which vaccines we need to take. And if you criticized him for it, you'd lose your job or lose your platform on social media, which is owned by Elon Musk, you know what I mean? Or Mark Zuckerberg. So we don't live in a democracy. Our democracy left us a long time ago. This is a oligarchy, plutocracy, whatever you want to call it. The plutocracy, the government for the rich and wealthy class. There's been studies done on this. Virtually nothing the American people want happens. It's completely irrelevant what we as the people want to happen politically. What the rich elites want is what happens. Just look at what's happening with Israel. Okay? 70% of the public has wanted a ceasefire for months. Joe Biden keeps sending them weapons. Joe Biden keeps supporting Israel. Okay, he will pay a little bit of lip service because he's getting protested everywhere he goes to a ceasefire, but he's not cutting the cord. Ronald Reagan actually stepped in and said, cut this out. In 82, when they were bombing Lebanon, Israel was bombing the hell out of Lebanon, he said, cut the cord. Stop it. Ronald Reagan got way tougher with Israel than Joe Biden has. And that's because of AIPAC. AIPAC just got Jamal Bowman kicked out of Congress because he dared to push back at the genocide that they're perpetuating. So what AIPAC wants matters more than what all of us in the state of Indiana, all of us in the Chicagoland area. Trump is he's more of an overt liar, but it's important to remember Joe Biden tells his whoppers as well. I mean, we forget Joe Biden was forced to step down when he ran for president. Because when he got caught lying about all of his credentials in college and his beliefs on the civil rights movement, and you know, he was plagiarizing whole speeches from other politicians in England. Like, Joe Biden's told plenty of whoppers himself. To me, this is just why it is important to understand that these people are not the end-all be-all. They are not the end-all be-all. It is important to understand that we have more than two candidates running for office. It is not just Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. I was a supporter of Cornel West, but his candidacy has been embarrassing, frankly. Now I'm much more inclined to vote for somebody like Jill Stein, who knows how to run a campaign. But RFK Jr. is out there. And could you imagine if RFK Jr. was on the debate stage yesterday, or Cornel West or Jill Stein with Biden and Trump, as opposed to being, just Biden and Trump? I mean, obviously both of them would have overtly embarrassed Trump and Biden. They would have embarrassed them. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And so I think what we're seeing now is that the reason they had this debate so early is that this was a trial balloon. They wanted to see if Biden is still there cognitively. I would not be surprised if they tried to replace him with Hillary Clinton, or maybe Gavin Newsom, who is the Justin Trudeau of America. He's sort of our neoliberal pinup here in America. We all know they wanted Kamala Harris, but the public hates her and will not vote for her. So they've got to try to shoehorn her somehow into it. And look, they're not going to be able to kick a black woman like her when Biden specifically said he was picking a black woman. And like the Biden administration kicking a black woman off the ticket would look terrible, and it would cause a huge backlash. Ultimately, I would say that right now, I think the Democrats' best bet is to focus on down ballot. Just focus on down ballot. Even if Trump wins, prevent him from having the Senate and the House, and just try to play defense for 4 years. That's what sounds like the most logical, rational plan at this point. Woo! All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to get into what so many people have really been afraid of when it comes to Donald Trump getting back in office. We're going to talk about Project 2025. We'll be right back after these.